Hey, everybody. Welcome to Market Mavericks. Of course, I'm Gareth Soloway, joined by Scott Melker and Mike McGlone. Mike, I think, is having some audio issues, but we will get him on as soon as possible. You can see him there, but again, I think he's on vacation, chilling out, but still willing to join us for Market Mavericks. So, Scott, let's start out with you, buddy. What is going on with crypto? Let's break down crypto. What is going on?
Things are going up. So obviously it's crypto week on Capitol Hill. We've had a few snafus there, but it looks like everything's on track to get the Genius bill passed today and then signed tomorrow. So that's stablecoin legislation. We should be getting through the first iterations of the Clarity Act, which is market structure and clarity, which will tell us what's a security, what's a commodity, what exchanges can and can't do. Basically, we're getting rules of the road right now for all things crypto, and obviously the market is reacting generally well. Now, frankly, I don't think that's what's moving the market right now. I think we simply have that very simple, wonderful scenario where there's more buyers than sellers right now, right? I mean, Bitcoin treasury companies, ETF inflows, institutions coming online. So we've seen Bitcoin go up. I think what's more interesting right now is that Bitcoin went up and is consolidated, and like days of old, which hasn't happened in forever, Ethereum and others followed, right? Mm-hmm. So we have Bitcoin dominance kind of falling off a cliff. Ethereum's up, I think, 22% this week. XRP's up 35% this week. You know, they've had 9-10% days. So really interesting to see meaningful flows into altcoins right now, certainly large cap altcoins.
Do you think this is going to be like what we saw in January, was a very short bull market in altcoins, or do you think this one actually could have some legs?
I think it has a little more legs. These altcoin runs are never that long, right? So even when you look back and fantasize about the good old days, it's always a washing machine of getting in and out of the assets and back into Bitcoin, right? So I will say, though, that this is really the first time you're taking a look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin here. Like, this is the first higher high in like years. You know, and this is above the 200-day, the 200 moving average on the daily. Now, we'll see how long that sustains. We've had little pops above. I mean, the last time we were meaningfully above the 200, you know, without kind of chopping around it, I mean, you're talking about 2022.
Yeah,
you know?
Incredible.
And so, like, if it stays up here above the 200 and we continue to see this and that kind of downward trajectory is broken, look out, because I think what altcoins have been waiting for is Ethereum to make a move, because there's so much money in the Ethereum ecosystem and none of that has been unlocked at all, as Bitcoin's been kind of the only mover.
Do you think so? One of the things that crossed my mind as a chartist and market participant is that very clearly back in January, there was a lot of hype in crypto. We did see Bitcoin making a new all-time high. We just talked about the altcoins. And then really it was almost like a sell the news. Like Trump got inaugurated. He threw a couple positives towards crypto, and then we saw everything die out. And I guess that's the one thing that I'm a little concerned about is, are we potentially going to see something like that?
You know, I heard a very interesting narrative on Crypto Town Hall this morning. We had Perry-Ann Boring on, who knows more about the legislative environment and what's happening on Capitol Hill than basically anyone in crypto. And we had this story come out yesterday that the U.S. Marshals are only holding 29,000 Bitcoin. We thought the United States government had 200,000. So a lot of people looking for more confirmation on whether other departments could possibly have it. But a Freedom of Information Act showed that we were basically down to that. And there was a theory that actually when Trump, this is what she said, when Trump basically issued the executive order saying everybody needs to account for it and send it to the Treasury, that basically most agencies, so as not to lose that money on their balance sheet, sold their Bitcoin. They sold it off. They converted it to cash. They kept it as part of their budget. They never sent it to Treasury. And that might be where it had gone. Like, this was a theory. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like there was kind of some shenanigans there where a lot of different departments that might have had Bitcoin holdings because they had gotten them through, you know, legal action or whatever, didn't want to lose that money as part of their own budget. So there you go. But either way, it's pretty bad if our strategic reserve is, you know, 90% lower than we anticipated.
But I'll throw this out there. The bullish case is that if that's true and the U.S. government was unloading for, let's say, the last 6 months even, or even the last 3 months, it would explain why you have so many people like Michael Saylor, strategy buying. And a lot of people were like, well, why isn't Bitcoin going up if all of these bigger players are going?
That was your answer. Right. That was to get to the actual answer, because I forgot the question as I was rambling on, was that the reason we might not have seen the upside price action that we expected back at that period you talked about was because that was actively when we were seeing over 100,000 Bitcoin sold by various parts of the United States government. That's a lot of Bitcoin.
Amazing. That is a lot of Bitcoin, and the market absorbed it, and we're at all-time highs, right? So I mean, that's really bullish actually for the crypto markets, and again, maybe sustainable. Now, let's talk quickly. I don't think Mike's on quite yet, but the S&P is rallying again today. You know, one of the things that caught me off guard a little bit is that we saw economic news the last few days, like CPI, PPI. I mean, yeah, they were upticking a little on CPI, but PPI was kind of down a little bit. So suffice it to say, still no inflation that's obvious, right, in the system. And then we had jobless claims today, which was 221,000, which is basically nothing to worry about. Like, that's normal. That's bull market expansionary jobless claims. And then even consumer spending and retail sales was higher than expected. And in my head, all of a sudden, I'm going from were we slowing down and we needed rate cuts to maybe we don't even need rate cuts at this point if the economy's starting to bubble up because of the wealth effect in assets. And I think that's the big thing here is if you have bull markets in crypto, altcoins, Bitcoin, the stock market, and even gold. I mean, even if you're just holding gold, you're doing great, right? So do you need to see cheap money back in vogue? I don't know.
I don't. I'm no lover of the Fed or of Jerome Powell, but I think that all the rhetoric around firing him and such is ridiculous and dangerous. And no matter what you think of him, you want the rule of law, I think, to prevail. But I think he overshot massively in the transitory direction, right? Sure. Obviously, and we know that. But at this point, there's no rational reason for the Fed to cut beyond political pressure and people wanting to see number go up. Like, if the economy is that strong, you cut because there's weakness, right? So I don't really see why you would cut into this tremendous strength. Everything's at an all-time high. If you believe the job data and such, which nobody does. But I mean, if you look at the numbers that they're looking at, it makes sense for them to just kind of do nothing. And you have to remember that when they did pivot, interest rates went up. So it wasn't like the market thought that was a great idea, right?
And I think it's important to kind of remind people that the Fed controls the short end of the curve, right? So the short end yields, but the 10-year, the 20-year, the 30-year, the stock market, or I shouldn't say the stock market, but investors or the global population controls that. Like other countries, whether they're willing to buy US debt or not, if they're not willing to buy it, we have to offer a higher interest rate, regardless of where the Fed funds rate is, to get people to buy that debt. And so it is just interesting to kind of keep that in mind. That it's not as easy as you could say, or not as easy as we want. Now, the one thing I will say, so one thing on Trump, I wonder yesterday, right? There were some headlines that caused the stock market to drop pretty sharply, where apparently he was meeting with Republicans and talking about firing Powell. They apparently were saying, yeah, fire him. And then we saw the stock market dive off a cliff. And then he came out and said, no, that wasn't true. And then the market just went right back up. So I wonder if he's kind of like, he has a tendency to kind of test things, like kind of release rumors, if you will, to see the market reaction and then gauge it and decide, does he want to do this? And he also tends to try to get people used to the idea by floating this over and over again. We see all this with tariffs ahead of time. And now look at this, right? So you had Liberation Day, markets dropped 20% on the S&P. And then he removed those mostly, but kept 10%. And now he sent letters to these governments like Canada, 35%, Mexico, 30%, EU, 30%, and the stock market's not even caring. And so it's almost like, people just get used to the idea after a while that something's going to happen. And then he's able to get these things through. Just something to think about. I was wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, I have long given up on trying to read Donald Trump's mind or what he's trying to do, because I can't decide if he's an evil genius or if it's just like whatever his ADD addled brain decides to spit out at any given moment, it could be either. So I don't really know, but I think there is some truth to that. I think he likes to throw things out to sort of gauge sentiment and then follow through with the ideas that are good. It's funny, when I was at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville last year, he had this moment where he, in his, prepared speech, he said, and we will fire Gary Gensler, right? And the crowd went absolutely wild. And he goes, wow, you guys really like that. I'm going to say it again. Fire Gary Gensler. And they went double loud. And you could see that was the moment when he was like, okay, I've got a new talking point.
Yo,
this one plays,
and
right?
it,
And so
and it,
I can't imagine that's generally how he like approaches everything, because he has this massive, not just as a president, but as like a social media influencer and as a
I was gonna
celebrity, he has
say,
this
I mean, he's an
massive
entertainer, right?
mouthpiece. Yeah.
He's an entertainer, and what do you entertainers do? They want to see the positive reaction and say, "Okay, I'm onto something here," and go with it. So that makes a lot of sense. Mike, can you hear us? No,
We can't hear you, but you can hear us. So we got
you can
that
hear
going
us.
for
We
us for
can't hear
today.
you still. Sorry, buddy. We'll miss you. All right. Well, hopefully next week listen. Go enjoy your vacation, Mike. If you're on vacation, go enjoy, buddy. We wish you all the best, but we will miss your analysis, no doubt about it. All right. So where do we go from here? I mean, I was looking at pudgy penguins. Is would you consider this still early in this bull market cycle when you see something like pudgy penguins up what 200% in the last week? I mean, what are your thoughts here on some of these coins that are going
So
nuts again?
listen, Pudgy Penguins is one of those. Now, I can't speak for the token itself, but Pudgy Penguins, and this is a Bitcoin chart, obviously, but Pudgy Penguins has gained real adoption, like
Hmm.
real mainstream adoption. I'm not saying the token, I'm saying the brand. Like Luca is a genius. He bought basically the IP on Pudgy Penguins, the NFTs, and turned them into cute plushy toys that are sold at literally Walmart and sell out every time they go. So that's a real company with a real brand. Now, that doesn't mean that the NFT should go up or that the token that they launch should necessarily go up, but it's defensible. And so I think that what that points to is that if Pudgy Penguins is going up and Ethereum is going up, and a number of other layer ones, XRP, depending on what you feel there, the ones that have a story or some sort of powerful narrative or utility, though, that's the alt season you can kind of look for right now. I think most of the useless, everybody knows it's useless, dead things aren't moving still, right? So whether it's based on a community or a utility or some kind of hype narrative, you need a narrative right now, even to catch a pump while things are going up right now.
Gotcha. And then one of the things that I keep on dealing with in terms of my brain having trouble understanding is, and this is just for educating me. A lot of the viewers probably know this, and they'll be like, "I can't believe Gareth doesn't know this." But explain to me how stable coins, like, is there a regulation that says a stable coin producer, like USDT or something like one of these companies that puts these out, can they just print ad nauseum as many as they want?
No, they can't. So they have to be like, well, the Genius Act will be very specific, and I mean, there's no law of the land per se that has, necessarily governed these in the past. USDC has, because it's in the United States, but they have to be fully backed. So anytime they are minted, that is backed by a deposit of equal amount of dollars or assets behind it. So they can't be minted out of thin air at all. They have to be fully backed by United States dollars in a bank account or very short duration treasuries that are easily and quickly liquid.
But
So
can I ask you one question? Are they allowed to print first and then say, okay, we have $1 billion in stable, and then go buy the treasury, or they have to
nope.
buy the treasury
Well,
first?
no, yeah, I think they can if they have the cash, and then they can go buy
Oh,
treasury
okay,
with
but
the
they have to
cash. But
have the
one of the two, there
cash.
has to be a cash or a cash
Okay,
equivalent to purchase the stable coin that's being minted. So there's no
gotcha.
thin air printing there. There's actual money behind it. And so when you see the market cap of a stable coin go up, it's because more entities are depositing to mint stable coins. Like if you're,
Gotcha.
and you have to be registered with Tether to do so. It's not something that just literally anyone can do. I don't even think Americans can do that, but you have an account with Tether and you deposit money and get stable coins in return.
Okay, I got you. All right, makes a lot more sense now. Because in my head, yeah, I was thinking about that, and I'm like, all right, hopefully they have to follow some sort of process to get the money first before they change it into stable coins. But that sounds like they do. Um, Going back to what we're seeing in the crypto markets, you obviously do investing in the stock market as well to some extent. Um, are you concerned at all by the kind of the buy everything mentality that we're seeing in the stock market that's now spreading to crypto? Or you're just like,
I
nah,
don't think
this
it's
could
spread.
continue.
I really don't think it's spreading to crypto. Honestly, I know
Okay.
that that's something like that's under debate constantly on this show. I think that this is just one of those moments where crypto has a number of fundamental reasons to shine, and there's just a lot more money going into there. Now, I'm not going to pretend that it's not supported or buoyed by the fact that we're in an everything kind of bull market across stocks. I mean, the SPX, I think, made a new all-time high today, right? The Q's making a new all-time high today. So everything is going up. Interestingly, though, Bitcoin's not really it's not making a new all-time high today. It made its all-time high, right? And so I think that crypto is in a very unique moment, like legislative clarity coming. It's hugely narrative everywhere. There's a ton of FOMO. We have treasury companies, we have stocks, we have Circle. There's just new money that's coming into crypto. And that's what's, I think, moving this market. And I think there's a lot more of that to come. So personally, that doesn't worry me. I mean, how do you view it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think the question, I guess, for me is, does this coincide with some sort of exhaustion with all this kind of lead up to this bill being passed? And then again, just because historically when you have stocks that do this, or like Apple has their new unveiling of their iPhone, I've just become very accustomed as a trader to saying, okay, Apple runs up into these big events and then sells off afterwards. And basically all it is taking profits. It's not to say that it's going back down to 20 or 50K, but it's just more of a sell the news until it can digest this now, and then it starts its next leg up. So again, and the only thing I would point to, and again, I'm a technician of the charts, but if we take a look here at the chart of Bitcoin, the only thing that I keep an eye on is just what the chart is telling me. And this is the only thing that is bearish right now. Is this is technically, when you talk about technical analysis, it's a topping tail. Topping tails historically are bearish reversal signals. So again, just something to kind of keep in mind. It doesn't mean that it can't be negated. And I always like to do this because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, Gareth's guaranteeing that it goes down. No, a topping tail, it means probability in the short term, meaning over the next week or two, is down, unless you get a daily close above the topping tail high. If that occurs, then it negates the topping tail and the bull can reemerge and push it up. So again,
I found the
things
candle.
like this.
Yeah, I found the candle after that a bit confusing, because earlier in the day, the next candle seemed like it was a major confirmation, right? You were trading back down into 15,000s. And then, of course, right at the end of the day, you kind of got this nice long wick down that I think showed me that was maybe more of a pause. And as you can see today, we're kind of getting continuation. So to your point, like, we'll see if that wick gets filled.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And that's all it is again, just being a trader that bases their analysis on, like, a lot of traders base it off fundamentals, right? Fundamentals in crypto are amazing right now. There's no denying that. As a shorter term trader, for me, it's more about the small moves, right? Can I capture 5% down before that next leg up, or 10% down? So just interesting to go over that. But the other thing too is you have to be impressed with XRP. I was looking at this. I mean, it's into a little pivot point here, the highest point from 2025 in January. But this is a really strong move for a company, a market cap the size of XRP. So again, is this just running on more of this kind of the same stuff that everything else is charging, or is there something specific to XRP here?
Well, I think XRP has had a number of kind of XRP specific narratives, right? They were the first to kind of beat the SEC. They've been included in the digital asset stockpile, for whatever that's worth. And I think that it was the most beaten down because of negative narratives for a very long time, especially with the previous administration. So a lot of exchanges relisted XRP after taking it down when they originally got sued. So you take a look at this, you're not only at the January highs, but you're also back at the all-time highs here from back in 2018. So it's really pushing right into the all-time high right now. But I think that part of this is that for the first time, as I mentioned, we're kind of seeing the old, I hate to use the term alt season, but the old patterns, which is that Bitcoin makes a huge move, it tops, and that liquidity then flows into large caps. So you see XRP is moving, Ethereum's moving, which has its own narratives with treasury companies and such. You see Cardano moving, right? Some of these big, old, high market cap dinosaurs. So now we'll see if that ends up trickling down into mid caps and small caps. This is what you used to see. And then everybody jumps back into Bitcoin for the next move. So if we're back in that cycle, it would be pretty exciting for anybody trading this stuff.
Absolutely. And I was just having a glance at the Solana chart. Same kind of deal here. It's had a great run over the last couple days. It's continuing from that move. It is approaching a little bit of resistance here. And I'll just show this, guys, is that you can see that if you go back on the Solana chart, this zone between 180 and 190 has been a very key level going back to basically mid-2024. You can see the high pivot here, and high pivot right here. And then it broke out. And then look at how that became support on the way down. Support, support, support. And then it broke below. And then look, here you had the pop right into it, rejected, rejected. But one thing I'll point out, and this actually is bullish for Solana, is that if you look at each time, like how many times did it hit the upper end? 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, breakout, 1, 2, 3, break down, 1, 2, 3, potentially break out to the upside. So again, these are things that a chartist will look at and say, okay, yes, it's resistance, but it could be a bullish, maybe we're approaching a breakout on Solana here where maybe it makes a run at that $300 level.
Yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, that looks good. And I look at every chart and they just look good. Charts just look good,
They
right? I
do.
mean,
They
it
do. There's
looks
no doubt
good.
about it.
Like there's bullish momentum. I'm sure it'll disappoint me at some point, but ride the wave, like
Ride
what
the wave.
as I keep saying, like, there's so many reasons to think that things could go bad. But right now, I'll worry about that when it happens.
Very, very true.
So much momentum, like for positive movement here. I mean, maybe I would love your thoughts on this, right? I mean, obviously you're always the one asking the questions here, but got stock market at all-time high, Qs at all-time high, metals still looking relatively decent. It's
It is one of these markets where something is off here. In fact, I was doing some research earlier today, looking up so I read an article yesterday from a pretty big player at one of the bigger firms on Wall Street, and he was basically saying that the AI bubble has now eclipsed the .com bubble. Now,
wow.
whether or not I agree with that, I'm not sure, but I was curious, so I went back and I looked at the total market cap in 2000 versus total market cap now. Total market cap in 2000 was, I believe it was 15 trillion. And we're at about 60 trillion in market cap. And I'm talking stocks only here, not crypto. But it is interesting to look. And then you would say, okay, well, what has the money supply done? The money supply has basically 4x'd since 2000, which actually would basically mean that it's 60K. So we at least, I don't know about bigger than the .com right now, but I certainly agree that we are at essentially that levels. Now, it's important to recognize that that doesn't mean we're about to top in the market. I mean, we could continue to grind up, but it's just one of those things that as an investor who's been around through multiple busts, and you have too, right? I mean, you remember 08, 09.
Sadly.
You go through these hardship periods and it does make you just be a little bit more cautious. I've touched the hot stove and I've gotten burned multiple times. And so little things like that do catch my eye. But you can't deny the momentum. I mean, people are just so eager to dump money into the markets left and right.
And they still have money to do so, which is unbelievable because
It
we've
is
heard about the
unbelievable.
weak consumer, credit card debt, and all these things. And somebody's buying everything all the time. And there's
All the
been no
time.
lack of funds to do so. So
And
definitely makes you wonder about
I
the
think what
metric.
it's amazing too is that you could argue that there are more headwinds of potential issues right now than almost at any other point in the last, let's say, 5 or 10 years. I mean, between trade wars and China, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine, we had Iran over for a while between Israel and Iran, and then we got involved. Then you have, the Fed. Are they going to lower rates? Where's inflation? Is it upticking? I mean, there's just, and I'm probably missing about 10 different things. Yet the markets just climb away, climb. And I think that
Wall
gives
of worry.
people, right. It gives people this sense of like, hey, listen, if none of these things can take it down, can anything really take the markets down at this point? And I think also, and historically, whenever I've thought there's been like a no-brainer trade, that's usually the one that catches me off guard, right?
Every
So it
time.
also has me, right.
Every
It's
time.
like, oh, this is such an obvious trade. Oh crap, I just lost big on it. It wasn't so obvious, but yeah, it's one heck of a market right
Well, that's
now.
scary because right now crypto feels very obvious. It
I
feels
know
like
it does.
yeah,
So does the stock market, though, right? I mean, the
yeah.
stock market literally will be opening lower or flush at like 9:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning, and then the markets just methodically grind and go green almost every day.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If we had Mike here, though, like he would point out a lot of reasons why the stock market shouldn't be going up, right? It's debt to GDP and stock market the highest valuations ever, and
Yep.
that
And
crypto. I don't see that right now. Crypto, I
that's true.
actually think it's catching a moment and actually has a bid, and since it's hard, so like I don't know what the fair value of Bitcoin is, right? But I can't say that Bitcoin's trading at 20x, what its PE ratio, or whatever. Like it seems like it's a pretty nascent asset and there's a fundamental reason for people to buy it. And we can transparently see who is. And that seems
Right.
to me very compelling.
Do you think, and speaking of which, we talk about like valuation, right? is there a point in the future where we will have a specific, like when you look at a stock, you look at earnings, revenue, and PE ratios. Like obviously Bitcoin's different because it's a value asset, right? It's something that it kind of protects you like gold. But is there a way that you can see in the future that we evaluate crypto and say, yeah, that's cheap right
Yeah.
now, or that's expensive?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, I think that you'll be able to see what protocols are earning. I mean, Pump Fund, for all the nonsense that it is, I mean, they're making 30 million bucks a month, right? So I can understand why you would want to invest in their token, assuming that there's a provable way that that value accrues down to token holders, right? So, but I mean, there are plenty of metrics. I mean, even with Bitcoin, you can see the hash rate, and the hash rate continues to rise, and the security of the network is improving, and there's all these, metrics, but you can't do it in the exact same way. But anything with utility in the future should be able to have a valuation model that shows, how much it's earning and what that utility is, and to put that in some sort of, financialized number as to what it's worth. I do think that's coming. I think that right now it's just not what crypto trades on.
Gotcha. And just made me think about, as we see Bitcoin basically near all-time highs, one thing that, again, it always sticks out to me as something of a concern is that, when Bitcoin was emerging, it was about, oh, this is going to be the people's token. Everyone's going to own a little bit of it. And we've seen obviously strategy with Michael Saylor accumulate more and more. I think he just bought more in the last week.
Half a billion.
Is that
Casually.
is there any risk to Bitcoin if a few players end up owning too much of it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a matter of owning too much of it. Well, I'll just say this. I'm concerned about the Bitcoin treasury companies, right? Because I think that if they end up scooping up billions and billions and billions of this by taking on debt and effectively leverage to do it, there's going to be some point where some of them become forced sellers, right? So a long-term risk, no. But do I think that a 20% Bitcoin correction could become a 40% Bitcoin correction because of that? Yes. Right.
Do
So
do
long
you think
term, I don't think it's an issue, but I could see the risk, for making corrections larger.
Do you think, like, we hear about a lot of these firms, semi-financial firms that are owning more and more Bitcoin. If we ever got in an 08, 09 scenario where their liquidity, their risk of going under, could that be what actually
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
collapses?
they'll
Yeah.
sell, right? They'll be
They
forced
just have
sellers
their
of
forced
Bitcoin.
liquidation.
Their shares will go to zero. So anybody who bought the stock will get hurt first. And then there'll be sort of this secondary effect of a sell off in Bitcoin.
Almost
That's,
like bondholders,
yeah, it's
essentially.
like a selling cascade. More forced sellers pushes price down to a price that means more sellers are forced to sell. And, we've seen it a million times, the leverage market, and this is leverage.
Interesting, man. Yeah, it's a fascinating frontier. Obviously, I mean, for a lot of people out there, I'm sure it's not a frontier anymore. But again, compared to the asset markets like gold, obviously, and even the stock market, it's somewhat still on the new side. So let's end with this. We talk about how we're seeing again all-time highs. Are you a believer that by the end of this year, Bitcoin could be above 150? 150?
For sure. I
For
think, I
sure.
mean, listen, Bitcoin could be 150 in a month the way it's been moving lately, right? I mean, we went from, yeah, I think we will see 150 this year.
All right.
Whether
All
it will
right.
close the year there or not, I have no idea. But like, I mean, well, we were at 99 June 22nd. So
Right.
less than a month ago, we went from 99 to 23, right? From here to here. And in April, we were at 74. We're up
Amazing.
50 grand. Right. So another 30 from here, it's like a rounding error for Bitcoin. That's 2 days of solid price action. So I think that that's definitely possible. I think we'll see it at some point this year, but I don't know that that's where we'll close the year. December is kind of an arbitrary time frame.
Got you. All right. Well, why don't we call it there? It's just about 3:30. We'll patch it up for today. And
I miss
this is
Mike. I miss
yeah, we
Mike.
missed Mike this week, but honestly, I like to just
Great
talking
combo.
about learning more of crypto from you. And again, that's one of the areas where I definitely don't know a lot. So it's always appreciated. So thank you so
Awesome,
much,
man.
guys. Follow Scott Melker on Twitter. Follow him on YouTube as well. And we'll see you next week. Have a good one, guys. Take care.